Ever wonder what makes the greats great? What makes the successful successful? What makes the brilliant brilliant? Our Tuesday meetups with the celebrities of pharma industry and science are your one-stop shop to all these answers and more. Join us for Pies of Life, an initiative of the Biopatrika Industry Mentorship Program, where we bring your dream mentors to you.
So you and I had exchanged some notes about what you could start off with, but maybe you can speak for about 5 minutes or so and just give your point of view of the world view of what you think about, and then we'll open it up.
Okay, now that's yes. If it's, I mean, if I have to put it in 5 minutes, I think it's firstly, it's a great, beautiful world which is created by us. I mean, there's nothing which is beyond our own control, and in that, I mean, finally, at the end of the day, while we go ahead in our following our passions, our dreams, it sort of really is nice in the world if this passion and dream and your career goals are aligned. Because if you're trying to do something because someone else told you to do it, I mean, that passion doesn't come in, right? It's something that you want from within. You get out the best of it. That's, I think, the first thing. And secondly, I really appreciate these kind of connections, because I don't know if you've heard, and I do a lot of these kind of things for mostly it's been with medicos and young students coming up and things. And I always tell them that I'll speak in your lingo. And I said, if we got lost, we probably stuck our head out of the car and asked, where's the way to go? How do you go ahead? But people don't need to do that. You just have your Google Maps, because you immediately, and we've also become tech savvy and learned to Google Map. But the bottom line is you need a map. So I think in your path that you take, which is never smooth, because if it was smooth, it would not be fun. It has to have its challenges, because it makes the destination all the more worthwhile. So you have to learn to this thing and not give up on that path. And when you're lost in that, you probably need a map. And my definition of a map is you need a mentor, you need the correct attitude, and you need passion. If you can put these three together, I think you got your, you've got the right car, you've got the keys, you've got the petrol, you've got the road. And it becomes all the more easier to reach where you would like to reach. And the second message that I love to tell everyone is that we get sometimes so focused that we forget that there's more to life than just a goal. And that I try to, what mantra that I've followed throughout my life is, I call it my 80-20 mantra, where 80% I'm doing, what I want to reach my goal, but I keep 20% of me for some other things, because life is beautiful. And you don't want to miss out on the journey because you are just looking at that goal all along. So you have your hobbies. So it's in everything. I mean, if you're reading for, say, your a very specific aspect of some cellular aspects or immunology and PhD, and you're heavily, but I feel 20% of the time you must read fiction, you must read current affairs, you can read whatever else which fascinates you, because lateral thinking comes only out of widening your horizons. And then if 50%, 80% of the time you're working, 20% is me time. And in that me time, there has to be something which is a hobby, which lets you let your hair down and you enjoy doing it, because you can come back with a fresh focus when you have hobbies. It could be music, like Naren and me go a long way from our school days, And I mean, the other day he sent me and I said, was that a mouth organ? He said, no, now it's the flute. So what's important is doing that. Or even today, I mean, I come what may, even if I've reached late and before it's not yet sunset, I'd probably go for a jog or go for a walk or get into something which is outdoor physical. So it keeps a fit mind in a fit body. So I think that aspect of balancing this out is very important. And the third is when you reach out and even your friends. I said 80% of the time you're all the time hanging around with your own, birds of a feather stick together. But 20% of the time, if it's outside of your thing, again, it brings in a huge perspective to your thought process. I mean, if I had only doctors as friends, right, I would probably just talk medicine and disease. But I've got the, people from IIT, I've got the psychologists, I've got people who are into painting, fine arts. So that brings a huge difference to your personality, where you can hold on into any audience and say, okay, what's your interest? Okay, books. Let's say, okay, which is the one you read? Did you read this one? You can get into a conversation. And I think that's also equally important when you're networking. If you're looking at, because finally to get on, you on networking. And you need, in your networking, you have to have a bouquet. It can't always be just one type of flowers. I mean, mix and match. You'd have all the Rajnigandhas, you'd only have the smell, but you'd want some roses put in and you'd want some greens there, because that makes the bouquet beautiful. So I think I'll end over here and just start shooting now. So I would like questions now.
Great. So Raji, let's go ahead.
Yes. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out your time. My first question is, does being woman had any special challenges in this journey?
Uh, Not really. Not really. Why I would say not really is because probably one never grew up to be told that, no one ever reminded me from my young days. I mean, we were in a co-ed school, so where you were all equal and we hung out together. We went, medicine was again about that. And yes, people ask me, like, I mean, I went into a very, very male domain, which was the armed forces. And at our time, we would be like hardly, like those extinct species or something, rare birds sighted kinds of things. But I would say that it was male predominant, but not male dominated. So there's a difference between the two. And at the end of the day, I think it's your competence. It's your competence which really matters. And your capability and your own confidence about yourself. The moment you start thinking that you're already trying to put yourself like, I would say, if I would think, and since the majority of your women here, I would think that it's an asset to be a woman, not a challenge, because you have one whole extra chromosome which makes you capable of a whole lot of things which the guys can't. Sorry guys, I mean, there are you are there, but yeah. Because to tell you honestly, now I'm in on a very high level, this thing where I'm probably the only woman in that entire South Block corridor, and I walk around and I find that why can't guys multitask? Even when I hold my conference in the morning and I'm saying, okay, he says, ma'am, this I'll do today, then I'll do. I said, why damn it can't you do the two things together? And then I just today quoted myself in this whole around my conference table, and I said, sorry, I have always done 10 things at a time. And I realize that you do have, because I know that you all can't, and if you have to do it well, you'll probably do it to perfection, but you must concentrate on one thing, so I'll let you do it your way. I mean, I actually said that. So that is one thing. And the second aspect is, the biggest difference is probably physical. But today, is it about a physical or is it a mental? And I know, is there any difference? No, there isn't. And the society is moving towards inclusivity, where, as it is, you're getting extra opportunities. So that gives you, again, an additional advantage. I remember my son, when he was going in for engineering, and he said, I wish I was a girl. I said, wow, that's a friend. Why? He says, you see, the best colleges, reservations are for girls, the reservations are for... does anyone ever think of higher class boys that they also need something? And it's about caste, it's community, and then there's women. So I said, I'd never thought of it because one never looked at it like that. So all these reasons, I feel it's an opportunity. And the thing I'd like to close on this is, because all of you are girls, what I tell all girls is, I hate when someone says, be like a man. I say, please don't forget you're a woman. You bring a strength to your workplace, to your studies, a certain amount of qualities, and you need both thought processes. So don't think like a man or act like a man. You be like a woman and you think like a woman and act like a woman, and you'll probably, together with this thing, work as a team. That brings in the best.
Excellent. I see Dipti's raised her hand. So Dipti.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello. It's lovely
Hi,
to see
Dipti.
you again. And thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
What are you doing now, Deepti?
I work in the arts, so I'm the black sheep of the entire group, I think.
No, I love that, because sorry girls, I'm going to take a little aside, because I've been knowing Dipti from, I think when she was born, and you know what Vibhuti says, she's into design and she's in there, and she says, you people are so boring, all too left brain. Thank God there's me right brained. So I don't think you're the white sheep there. Good.
Thank you for that. So, in all of the conversation that we've been having about mentors, mentorship, and how mentors can help guide young people, people who are in the middle of their career, so on and so forth, what I'm always curious about is, once you have reached where you are, you've gone through lots of trials, you've learned many life lessons, you've figured out yourself in a sense that you know what makes you tick, and so on and so forth. As someone of my age, I know what I'm currently dealing with, but what I want to know is, after all that you have accomplished, what is it that you maybe struggle with, or what is it that you find yourself having to work through as a challenge? I think that would be really interesting for us to know, to see what are the differences, where should we perhaps aspire to get to. So if you could share something.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And I don't think that it's, firstly, I think what you this thing, it's not something that a mentor can tell you, because each one has his own experiences and own challenges. But what the mentor can is be a good listener, and probably give you options. I mean, I look at it that way when I mentor a whole lot of students, is I give them the pros and cons from my perspective, but I tell them, go sleep over it and bring in your perspective to it, because I can tell you only my perspective, which gives you this thing. And I think it was Naren who once said that, you start information and then you carry on and assimilate and get, as you get into post-graduation, post-doctoral and all those, your information changes to some kind of a knowledge. And then by the time you really get wisdom, you've kind of aged, and then you want to start bartering it around. But the fact is, the journey is not the same. Your goals are not the same. Your aspirations are not the same. So you can never extrapolate that to someone, but you can definitely provide the tools through mentorship. Okay, what's your problem? You this. Okay, maybe could you like to, as an outsider, like to try it out like that? So that's one thing. As for my own challenges, I think my biggest this thing was work-life balance, and I don't think it's. Like I said, in art, this thing probably it was more about being a woman. It made it more difficult. But as generations are changing, I think this is a issue for both partners, especially if both are working, because you would need to, where to kind of divide out and say, okay, and you're all the time torn out between, look, I need to be home, I need to be there for the children, and this is the most important time, or there was this thing at this one. I've got a lot of phone calls. There's one video which has gone viral, in which I just gave an example of what exactly you said. That I would follow two things every time. I would try and shut my eyes and say, what means most to me at this moment is something that if I did it later, I'll still have time to do the make up for what I'm missing by doing this thing. Then let me choose this. That always sort of helped me as a tool. And the second thing was, then take it on from that. So there was this incident where I was handling a little 500-grammer baby in the hospital, which really needed me to be there full time, and husband was posted somewhere else, and had this little 3-year-old daughter at home who was running high-grade fever. And it kind of really hurt when, I had to leave because there was a call, and she said, I think I'll have to be really sick for you to first come and sit with me. See, as a mom, I was at that point, and it really, I said, what should I do? Because yes, she has a point. She's running a high fever. She wants me to sit with her, but the fever I can come back and look after, whereas this baby is not breathing well. I need to go to the hospital. So I was torn for a few seconds. Then a brilliant idea came to my mind, I told her, I said, suppose we both go together. So I wrapped her up. We got onto this thing, and I admitted her into the hospital. And the same this thing. And I said, okay, you're there and my baby's there, and I can look after both of you. And I think it was not a solution that I would say everyone can do, but it was at that moment, it just struck me. And 30 years later, it's almost 25 years later. This happened in 1994. So it's really 25, 26 years later. When I get this phone call, some time back, because I was in the newspapers and things, and this girl, and she said, I'm Pinky speaking. And I said, who's Pinky? She said, ma'am, aapko yaad nahi hai, lekin I grew up through life knowing that I was a 500-grammer. In those days, 500 didn't survive. And they said, everyone gave up for dead where you picked up, and 3 months, I believe, you nursed me. So all through life, my parents have told me there was this lady who had, and the mom had been discharged. And they came back, and then I laughingly said, isko Pinky bulao, because she's like a little pink chicken, just 500 grams. And the name stuck. And she's now Garima. She's finished her MCom from BHU. She's married. And she's just moved to Delhi. And she says, I want to come and meet you. So then I look back, I said, probably that day I did the right thing. Yes, my daughter this thing was a little cut up with me. But this girl has lived to, see this day, and daughter's also happy. So it may not always work out, but at that time, it probably you take these kind of decisions.
Great.
Thank you.
Gaganjot, you can quickly introduce yourself in 2 lines and then ask the question, please. Gaganjot?
Yes, sir. Hi, ma'am.
Hi, Gagan.
This is Dr. Gagan. I am a professor in Khalsa College, Mumbai.
Okay.
Ma'am, I'm just asking you once. Actually, you told a bit of that also. It is like you actually, a woman, juggle in the life of home and the work. At the same times, there are some places where the woman has to sacrifice for her career also.
Yes.
She has much more abilities to go outside, venture things. But due to family and kids, she has to sit back. And then when she has to again start up, she has to go to back to the old mentor, or she can take a new mentor and start afresh things.
It depends on what you're looking for. If the mentor is not a constant person. Just the way I said, I sometimes tell role models, people say, do you have a role model? And I said, I don't think you need one role model. Everyone is a role model. Someday it could be your friend, someday. So the mentorship role also changes. Because a person who would be able to guide you best is someone who's been through or who understands, because you have your priorities, right? And someone who understands those, someone who's not connected to you and tries to give you some gyan. You'll say it's easy preaching. That may not be mentoring, it may be preaching. So I think it would be on your circumstances. But having said that, I again want to give a little different perspective to taking decisions of this. We all feel that, okay, maybe I lost out. But in your losses, you always have gains. Because at the end of the day, you're looking at the full picture. People ask me, why did you, you are so brilliant. Why did you join the armed forces? Why did you do this? Why did, you could have, gone abroad, or the time that I didn't go for a post graduation because I had a small son and I wanted him to be at least 2.5. So I took 4.5 years later that I went back for a post graduation. Or when I did my super specialization, I went back, 8 years later. And no one would have thought of going back to studies, after such a break. But at the end of the day, maybe I lost out this, but I could make that up. But probably, at 45, if I decided that now I'll get married and have children, probably I couldn't have done that. So, what I mean to say, everything has time, and whatever you do is not a loss. Like the other day, I was doing a mentoring session that people said that, there's so much we've lost out because of this stay at home and lockdowns and things. I said, have you thought of how much you've gained? Because you've suddenly got more me time. You're being able to do everything and yet spend time at home. You've started learning, going back to doing, at least I was, cooking every day, and because it was the highlight of the thing, you stop stepping out and eating and going to the pubs. You are spending time in maybe board games and, sitting around with your family, because you have this thing which you would have probably, I was locked down in Pune with my son and daughter. My daughter was visiting from the US, and we all looked at each other first few days. I said, do you realize we've never ever stayed together like this? And then we said, okay, let's party for that reason. Because the five of us, so these are small things that at the end of it, we've gained also a lot. We've learned to do so many things. We've gone back to our culture. Our basic Indian culture of, ki namaste karo, now the world is following. We've talked always of, the amount of hand washing we were taught, and the Indian culture, no one is ever, except probably when they, go to the washroom or something, but because we eat with our hands, so we want to wash before we eat, we want to wash after, and now the whole world is talking about hand washing. So, so everything has its pluses. Look at the environment. The whales have started this thing, the animals have reclaimed their land. I walk out in Delhi on main roads, I have these peacocks are walking around, and it's going to be a short time and they're all going to go back. I actually saw sparrows in Pune. I thought they were extinct. You never see those little chimnea, we used to call them in Marathi, and those little sparrows were, over the years, we'd stopped seeing sparrows, which we used to see as kids. But suddenly they've claimed and started coming back from somewhere. So I think you need to take time off to take in the things which you're gaining if you're losing something.
Thanks, ma'am.
Sneha, you're up.
Hi, Sneha.
Hi, ma'am. It's a pleasure talking to you. So basically, about my background, I've worked as a scientist in Biocon R&D, and
Yeah.
my manager is also in the line.
Okay.
So it's a good thing. So,
Great.
ma'am, so I wanted to ask that have you ever encountered a point in your life, in your career, where you thought that maybe this is not the right choice for you, or because for us students like me, I have worked in biopharma company, and then I had got a huge gap. Then I even taught at a college as a lecturer. Then now I'm still trying to work to get into a pharma company, but due to my gap, it is not getting easier for me to get easily. So is there any, have you encountered any such way where you thought that maybe this is the right thing, or the gap has made you turn back and look back at your choices?
No, firstly, I think, I've not been in a similar situation, but I talk education, right? It may not be the same, but I just told you how I went. And when I was doing my nephrology, I thought, I wish that the young students around wouldn't turn around and say auntie to me because I was way much. But then you bring to the table a certain maturity, because when you go back to a thing, you may be taking a little, but you're faster on the uptake because you've gained something in other horizons of, it may not be exactly related to your work. But I think as you mature, you're better team players, which you are not as a younger this thing. So all these kind of things bring a little different, and you make up for that lost time.
Correct.
So as a holistic part of it, and the rest of it, you have to work harder. So I mean, because in your gap, technology may have come in, new aspects may have come in, so you need to quickly catch up on that. And organizations are looking out for, and today people have realized this advantage of people coming back and taking on careers again. In fact, if you, any of you all who having this thing, the Department of Science and Technology, DST, is having a separate scheme for women coming back into the science stream, and especially if they are from, the pure sciences, they since I'm a member on that, we have been putting out this thing that can we have a dashboard kind of a thing on a, areas where people, because today you don't have to be physically present. So if you're staying in a city A and you have a particular interest you want to, you can get your funding from, so like whether it's DBT, DST, they've all brought out extra schemes for women coming back. So if you need a mentor in that particular field for your job, if you already have one, fine. Otherwise, you might like to look out for newer avenues and pick up someone who's working in your area of interest. And along with your experience that you bring to the table, you might like to think something different or out of the box instead of going into the same thing again.
Correct.
Good.
And ma'am, one last question. I wanted to ask how to keep yourself motivated, like throughout the journey. Like, how did you keep yourself motivated?
I think, firstly, I never, I looked at short-term goals, as to what is it that is going to make me happy, instead of looking at the end results that, okay, I'm going to be a general one day. Frankly, I never looked at it. I never thought of that. I probably at that time was, okay, how can I make, if it's my little pediatric ward, it's going to be the best, how I'm going to make it the best, how every child is going to be the happiest patient in this hospital. So it was something which was broken up into what would make me happy. My goals were always what would make me happy, right? So I think that was what, and then achieving that, because nothing succeeds like success. So if you put something, which is just a little out of reach, but is going to make you happy, you can strive, have that satisfaction having achieved something, because then you start looking for the next one. So I think all along I was always very particular about this. Like even now I've come into this chair and I'm doing something which was just not part of my this. But because I said you bring experience from different sources to your table, so I am actually a medical advisor to the newly formed CDS. Now that sounds very big, but frankly didn't have any job content, because CDS was right, the chairman defense staff, that post was created and he's the first CDS. So being on his staff as a medical advisor, deputy chief, even he didn't know what I'm supposed to do, and I didn't even know what I was supposed to. So then I started creating my own. And my first challenge was, I said, I just took over and COVID happened. So I said, look, like for the armed forces, let's, make policy these things and change that. And then I found that the biggest problem was people were scared to go out and talk to. So I said, I went to walk up to him and I said, I would like to set up a teleconsultation service for the armed forces. So he said, yeah, that's a damn good idea. And because it was something which was self-driven, no one had any of these things, then it's like what you all are all doing, it was through networking. Since one knew the DG, CDAC, and people, I found out that Mohali mein there's a team which is, so this idea was, it came to my mind on 10th of May, and 28th of May my beta version was launched. And it's with just 2-3 people on my team, and none of us are IT experts, but doesn't matter. It's the idea and how you push it with passion. So on a daily key, we must do this by evening, video conferences, ye karna. And then I didn't know, again, it's teamwork. I didn't know what to call it. So what did I do? I'd been dean at AFMC. I'm just sharing for fun stories, Yeah. I just rang up my undergrads, because the youngsters are much more fertile in their minds, and as you grow, it gets fossilized. So I said, why am I scratching my head? I threw it like a little competition for my undergrad. I said, have some name for me, yeah, which has services, which has teleconsultation, whatever you want. And then there were overnight and next morning I had 20 names. Can you imagine? I just had to do was pick Sehat. And it was Sehat became the name and the listing. So I said, and why? Because it is services for the armed forces. We are services, right? Services, e-health, assistance, and teleconsultation. That was Sehat. And it was born. And then I said, okay, I need a logo. So should we make cartoons? I said, what the hell? People, when they want to see a doctor. So I then rang up the postgrads. I said, guys, I need a logo for my this thing which I have to launch, and it needs to have a gender equality. I must have girls, I must have boys, I must have them smiling, and you must show technology. So any of you all can just go on to the website. It's www.sales. All postgraduates who've been my students, one is in the Air Force, one is in the Army, one is in the Navy. They conceptualized it. They stood with a stick, a telephone, and a tablet. And I got my logo. So in 24 hours, my web page was done, my name was done. Because I didn't say I'll, try to figure it all out. I just threw it open into everyone. I said, come on, let's do it together. So I think that's the way.
Yeah, just in the order of questions, since I'm moderating, Sukesh, you asked the question, and after that, Rai. So Sukesh?
Ma'am, so when you are a trailblazer, or let's say you're doing something entirely unique or new, it is very difficult to find mentors. So how did you overcome that hurdle of finding a mentor even in a very young life?
No, I mean, see, I wanted different things, right? So it's not something, I don't have to have a mentor who is a woman, who's a pediatrician, who's a nephrologist, who's done everything like I've done. It doesn't matter. So in my initial days, it was more about soldiering, right? So I looked up to people around me and I feel mentor is someone you can relate to. It's not you can pick up a book and read about him and this thing. Mentor is someone you have to be able to. So at those times, I didn't need a general as a mentor. I probably needed a young captain or a major with a few more years of service that telling me, I mean, what am I expected to do when I, get into an officer's mess? I had no service background. So it's as per the need. And then when I went into pediatrics, started doing something in that field, then I said, okay, now I want to know someone I look up as. And I can quote the names because it was Dr. Amdekar who is, and today, I'm a mentor to his son. So the wheel goes right back. So he was in JJ hospital, and I found that the way he related to patients, so I would just observe and said, okay, this is what I want to emulate. So it was at different stages. Or when I said, okay, this, as a woman, I'm going through difficult this thing. So I found Punita Arora. She was one of the first ladies to become a general. So I would, talk to her. So along the way, and when it was nephrology, I found, and today we are the best of friends. She's not even in India. She's the professor of, and today she's the president of the International Society of Pediatric, IPNA, International Pediatric Nephrology Association. She's Yakwi Kim. And we just became friends and I first picked her up as a mentor because I wanted to start a dialysis program. And I said, okay, nearby India, who's doing it? Singapore. Wrote to her, went down there, and today, so many years later, we're the best of friends. So I think it's about a need which you look around, you find, and mentors would give you reinforcement, but I think you're learning all the time. When you meet some seniors and you meet some colleagues and you don't like something about you, even that is a learning, because you say, okay, I'm not going to do like this, because the way he carries or the way she talks and hurts people like him, I think it's a horrible thing. I don't want to do that. So that itself also is a learning process.
Madhuri, you said 45 minutes. We are at 45 minutes. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, thank you so much. But I seem to be enjoying and this thing. So I think if there are any couple of people who got left out, let me take their question. Thanks so much, Naren.
So it's Rai, and then after that, Sabiha.
Yeah, so both of you all take your questions. Quick.
Hi, ma'am. So I'm doing my PhD in pediatric brain tumor from Tata Memorial Center in Mumbai. So I wanted to know, in your younger days, who inspired you to be who you are today? Did you have a inspiration?
I think my most young days, someone who's influenced me was probably my grandmother. And I mean, she was an amazing lady in the early 1900s, a child widow, someone who'd been an orphan and brought up by someone else, but had worked her way through to and become a doctor and worked in Africa. I mean, her stories were so inspiring that that was one thing. And the second, like, we were three sisters and Narendras, all of us, and I think we were never ever in any way told ki, okay, you can't do this because you're a girl. So I think so in that sense my father was a huge role model of independently thinking and bring out. And my mom would always say, I've been a housewife, and we loved her for what she did, but she would all the time say, no, you must be like your aji, that's grandmother. I mean, because so it was a mix of all that, I think, which really influenced my early years.
Yeah. And did you have a turning point in your life, as in, the one which we called as an inflection point? So do you have something like that?
Yes, and it was like this thing. I think the turning point was when I was in 12th standard, and I had wanted to do medicine because my grandmother, and I mean, it was all sort of, a science talent, have to do that. And I had never heard of the armed forces. So I have this roommate in my hostel who's a Air Force officer's daughter, and so she says that why aren't you giving the exam for? And I'd never heard of a place called AFMC. So she took me there, and I think that was, and there, Naren's elder sister was already studying there. So I met her there, and these two things of having seen a fantastic campus which permitted, I mean, there was a huge importance given to sports and, what have you, and the infrastructure and the discipline. So that was, I think, two things happened. One was I visited and I was very impressed, and Anjali, his sister, in fact, she took me around and really showed this thing. So that was something which I loved it. And the second was I met my future husband, who was going to be an army officer. So I think these were the two turning points, and suddenly I was heading towards being a doctor. Probably would have done my MBBS, pushed off like most, gone to the US, done something, and blah blah blah. And suddenly it was a turning point, and I made that my life and my career.
Great. That's great.
Okay, Sabiha?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, hi, Sabiha.
Ma'am, this is Sabiha, and I am pursuing my post-graduation in microbiology from MS Ramaiah College in Bangalore. Ma'am, I have one question related to failures, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, failures are a part of our life. Both, if we can't succeed without failures, ma'am. So what we in our life, ma'am, what happened when we get continuous failures in our life? And if we try to overcome that failure, again, that fear of failures come in our mind, ma'am. It will definitely come in our mind, ma'am.
Yes,
So how to overcome that, ma'am?
That is human. Firstly, that is human, and it is normal, because we are all the time striving, because we have a fear of failure. And at that time, wanting to give up is the first thing, that this didn't work out. But at that point, if you think objectively, or you need a friend, you need a mentor, you need a peer who looks at it from outside. Because when you failure, you're thinking only from your perspective, and you start blaming yourself. So instead of that, if you can have a mentor, a friend, or a teacher, or some person, or a elder relative, whatever it could be on, who helps you look at it objectively as to what is it that contributed to that failure. I think you learn more from failures than from successes, because it's not only helps you get over it, but it's taught you a few other things. I mean, probably at that time I was too fast to take a decision, or probably something which happened which I let it control this thing, or was it that my effort was a little lesser? Because if you come objectively, you know what to do for that, right? Otherwise, you keep on saying कि नहीं ये तो ऐसे ही होना है. So I think that is very important, that it's firstly that the failure is going to teach you, and secondly is to look at that failure objectively and also relatively. What you may be thinking that ये तो बिल्कुल ही failure है. I think science has shown enough. There's so many times where something given up, a new molecule comes out of a failure, or a new drug comes out of a so-called failure. So again, that's a relative term, no? So, and the winner is one who says that one last time I'm going to again try. I know it's like getting late for me, but I must quote this one thing. I was doing interviews for AFMC selection, and 3 consecutive years I'd done the interviews. And third year, there was this boy, and I recognized him. I said, तुम पिछले साल भी आए थे, पिछले साल? He says, ma'am, उसके पहले भी आया था. This is my 4th attempt. I said कि, I mean, 4 साल में तो तुम BSc भी खत्म होती. Why are you still trying for? His answer floored me. He said, Madam, पिछले साल I had come for the interview and I was waiting up there, and this black gleaming staff car with this lal batti and jhanda came, and you got out of it and walked there, and I said, no, if it requires one more year, I want to join and wear this uniform and be like that. And I worked harder, and he'd come very high in merit, and he's joined the college. So, I mean, anyone else would have given up, but I said hats off to a guy, because I think he's the most successful guy. All the others would have given up. But this guy found that one reason to hang on. And he's going to be more successful because he's found that one thing of hanging on when everyone gives up. Last question. Who was it? There was one more? Or we done?
No, there's Camellia, one more. There are many more, but Camellia is like,
yeah, because 9:30, my energy levels finish. Yeah.
Yeah, Camellia.
So, hi, Camellia.
Hi. Hello, ma'am. I'm actually working as a JRF at IIT Gandhinagar. And my question to you is that you have been a trailblazer, and being a woman in the field that you're currently working in, that's really something great. So I want to ask you, have you ever dealt with any performance pressure? And if yes,
all the time.
How did you overcome it?
Again, prioritizing. Because see, when do you get into performance pressures come in when you start doing well? The expectations get more and more and more, and you want to pull out your hair because you want to do everything. And everyone expects so much out of you and there's one of you with 24 hours in the day, and you need to eat and sleep also. So that's the time then you start prioritizing and learning to say no, that I can't handle this. Like I'm giving an example, I love being with youngsters. And the fact that I said that Sawa no, but I'm going to switch off, but I'm continuing, is this reason that, that I've given myself now that I can't handle more than these, and I must be able to say no. So I think that's one thing that one learns to this thing on performance pressures, and then trying to prioritize as to what means at this moment what I have to do. So you divide out and try to again, say, okay, some other things switched on. And the other thing was something which I learned from my husband. I was a perfectionist. I wanted everything, that I was doing my post-graduation and I'd be studying the whole this thing and come back home, and there'd be my little son and husband would sit at home, and then I would start, cleaning because the wash basin wasn't sparkling clean, and then the kitchen wasn't, so I wanted that rubbed up, and then I'd obviously get irritable. And one day my husband turned around and told me, he says, why don't you be less than perfect? You'll be happier and we'll be happier. So, and I said, my God, I never thought of it. He says, how does it matter वो बेसिन गंदा रहा तो क्या फर्क पड़ेगा? तुम आते ही you're tired, instead of saying hello and sitting and chatting, you wanted to scrub that thing कि ये भी ठीक होना है, वो भी ठीक होना है. So I think that's another thing, when pressures get too much, you've got to say, look, I don't have to be a perfect. To hell with some of the things. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Madhuri.
Thank you so much.
Last
And
final
it's
word
been
from
lovely.
you. Just final
Yeah.
word from you, and then we can close.
Yeah, well, final word is this, that go for it. Yeah, I mean, don't ever give up on anything, because you have this one life. Live it to your full, and let that passion remain with you all through. Don't let anything get it down. Okay, because all the getting downs are temporary. It's only when you hit the ground harder you can bounce back faster.
Great.
Okay,
Thank you
so
so
go
much.
for
Madhuri.
it.
And
Okay, bye bye.
everyone else can stay on because I'd like to hear your feedback. Anyway, but bye,
Yeah.
Madhuri.
Yeah, and you must give a feedback. All of you all can give, compile out and give a feedback to me from Naren, because it's been lovely interacting with each one of you. Bye, girls.
Bye.
And bye, boys also. There were
Thank you so
only a couple of them, so I mean, that's. But it was lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
A network should last a lifetime. Let us help you create lasting professional relationships with our world-class mentors through the Biopatrika Industry Mentorship Program. A strategic guidance program unlike no other, full of expert interviews, industry internship opportunities, CV writing, inflection point analysis, life maps, and of course, the gateway to your dream career. For a limited time only, all our services are freely available for you, as we truly want you to succeed.